And this is what we're talking about today. Social media influencer red flags. How to spot them and why you should run as fast as you can away from them. Do you struggle to maintain weight loss but desperately want to feel good in your own skin, confident in your clothes, and improve your overall health? If so, you're home. Hey, I'm Sam, dietitian, specialist in weight management, and former functioning fat girl. I learned the secret of how to lose and maintain weight by simply nourishing my life well. If you're ready for the sustainable nutrition strategies, consistent habits, and freedom from a self-sabotaging mindset, grab your water bottle and let's go. Before we get started on today's amazing episode, I just want to remind you that if you're not subscribed to my email list yet, you're missing out. I'll be breaking down the most important points of these podcast episodes, providing you with a healthy recipe of the week or a favorite meal prep tip, and give you first dibs on any new offers or programs I'm running. This is the best way to stay in contact with me, and I'd also really love it if you sent in ideas for topics to get into on the podcast. So don't miss out and go ahead and click the link in the show notes to subscribe to Anchored Living, my email newsletter. Okay, let's dive into the episode. Hey friends, let me ask you something. If you broke your leg and needed it to be fixed, would you find a qualified orthopedic surgeon to go to? Or would you make an appointment with someone who just fancies themselves qualified because they're super into reading about orthopedic surgery on the internet? I am being dead serious. You would, of course, go and see the qualified orthopedic surgeon, right? So riddle me this. Why are there so many influencer accounts online with people giving health, nutrition, weight loss advice based on absolutely zero credentials? Recently, a very prominent influencer on social media was called out in her comments by someone asking why she thinks she's credible for giving nutrition advice. This is coming after one of her viewers landed in the emergency room after following one of her ridiculous and unsubstantiated claims. I don't particularly want to get into the details of what that was, but the influencer, who shall remain nameless, responded by saying, "You don't need a piece of paper to prove that you know stuff." She goes on to say, quote, "My credentials are 10 plus years of research, 7 hours a day, and almost dying from IBS, creating an empire, publishing a digestive book that's helped millions, and creating my own digestive support protein powder that literally saved lives from Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis," end quote. So that sounds impressive, huh? Even though it's highly unlikely she was researching for 7 hours a day for 10 plus years, but nonetheless, if you're going to teach other people, you most definitely need to be credentialed to do so. Creating an empire and writing a book doesn't mean you can actually help others. Anybody can make claims. I know that this topic is probably a little bit controversial and going to ruffle some feathers here, but you guys know I keep it 100 with you. I am completely honest, and I just want the best for you. So my favorite part of her response is that she goes on to say, quote, "Fun fact, dietitians aren't focused on nutrients. They focus on macros," end quote. Babe, bless your heart. The term macro is literally short for macronutrient. What do you mean we don't focus on nutrients? That is quite literally our job. Not just the macros, but the micros too. You guys, it's exhausting to see all of the insanity online sometimes. And if you don't know any better, like her argument sounds like it could maybe be legit. And this is what we're talking about today. Social media influencer red flags. How to spot them and why you should run as fast as you can away from them. Nutrition fear-mongering. The practice of spreading exaggerated, misleading, or emotionally charged claims about foods, ingredients, or eating patterns in order to create fear, urgency, or distrust around eating choices. It often oversimplifies complex science, ignores context and nuance, and can lead people to avoid foods unnecessarily or feel anxious about eating, aka promote disordered eating patterns. So why is this dangerous? Well, it can increase food-related stress, for example, food noise, orthorexic tendencies, lead to unnecessary restriction, create confusion about what's actually healthy, and undermine trust in legitimate nutrition professionals. So this is the biggest thing that I think, I hear most often is, I'm so confused. Like, is this good or is this bad? Because I see people online saying it's good, and then I see people online saying it's bad. And, I don't understand. So when things go around the interwebs, they're being shared based on that blessed algorithm that I can never quite figure out. I'm not bitter about it at all. But, it's not as though Facebook or Instagram or X is like vetting what you're saying to determine if it's actually based on real science or what, So you can say something and there are people who have absolutely no idea what they're talking about in terms of nutrition or weight loss or health, but they're really, really good at tech. They're really good at like making fun videos, and they really know how to like check all the boxes so that the algorithm then sends it out all across that World Wide Web. How do you know you're old? When you're calling it the World Wide Web. And so, it goes places, and all these people are seeing it. And then the trends start occurring. So then, more people kind of piggyback off of that, and they're recreating their own versions of that. And so then the next thing you know, there's messaging that is based in nothing, like no real evidence to show its benefits, being spread across online, and all these people are seeing it, and it sounds and seems credible because it's being presented in this sort of like professional package of good lighting and fun memes and funny dances and songs and those types of things. But if you don't know any better, then you don't know that it's actually not credible information. I want to give you a list of some influencer red flags so that you can make sure your algorithm, your page, when you're scrolling, that the only people that you're following are ones that you've vetted, that you can tell are giving you good information. And then you can get rid of the ones that are red flags. So number one, they speak in absolutes, like this is good, this is bad, never eat this, always eat that. villainizing specific food groups or specific foods, for example, carbohydrates, fat, animal sources, sugar, seed oils, the bane of my existence lately, seed oils, gluten, soy, dairy, non-nutritive sweeteners, also known as, or formerly known as, I should say, artificial sweeteners, fruit, oats. All of these things have had their time in the sun of being excommunicated from the world as though they are bad. But everybody's bodies are different, and everyone has different goals. They're starting from different baselines. They have different medical histories. They have different likes and dislikes. They have different traditions. They come from different cultures, and on and on. Food is not black and white. You can derive benefits and drawbacks from literally everything. Some foods have more nutritional benefits. Some foods have more hedonistic benefits, also known as like just making you happy, finding joy in eating it. If someone is posting a video on socials from a grocery store pointing out specific foods that you should never eat, saying they're toxic and you should never eat them, that is someone who is not providing good guidance and someone I personally would quickly scroll past. First, I would probably roll my eyes, and then I would scroll past. The second thing, they make no references or examples of how their claims may affect different populations, different goals, etc. So, assuming everyone is just the general population. This is where that word nuance comes in and why it's so important to get your information from a qualified person who understands all of the different nuances within the world of nutrition. 99% of the questions I get from people are something along the lines of, is this good? Or can I have this? And 99.9% of the time, my answers start with something along the lines of, well, it depends. Let's talk it through. And then I talk them through the many different factors and aspects to consider about whatever it is they're asking me about. It may be annoying, but it is important that you understand all of the different factors so that you can make an educated decision for yourself. If it's someone who's not my client that I don't know and I don't know anything about them, it depends, and then I proceed to ask them a bunch of questions. Again, this is frustrating and annoying for some people, and oftentimes in their frustration, they say stuff like, just tell me what to eat. Unfortunately, nutrition is just so much more nuanced than that, and it can't happen in like a 5-minute conversation. So when an influencer is telling you to add electrolytes to your water all day without considering your activity level, if you have any cardiac or blood pressure issues, etc., that could potentially be dangerous for some. Sugar is often a really good example of this, as I am just forever seeing influencers giving blanket statements like, it's better to just use a little bit of regular sugar versus artificial sweeteners. Or the opposite, like, don't ever have sugar. Sugar is toxic. And they even take it further by encouraging people to use like brown or raw sugar, agave nectar, or honey instead of artificial sweeteners. Well, for someone with type 2 diabetes, being told to use sugar can have incredibly detrimental effects on their health. And I hate to break this to people who don't know, but brown sugar, sugar in the raw, honey, agave nectar, maple syrup. It's all sugar, guys. It's all processed in the body as sugar. So it's all going to spike blood sugar levels, and therefore using a little of an artificial sweetener, now known as non-nutritive sweetener, may be a much better choice for that person. Number 3, people who frequently contradict themselves. There's one influencer who comes to mind first when I think about the contradictions, and unfortunately he has a massive following and makes a lot of money by calling certain things quote unquote approved by him. I'm not going to name any names, but it rhymes with schmobby. On the surface, his videos can seem super informative, but if you aren't well versed enough in nutrition to know, like, when he's not actually making sense, you can still kind of pick up on his constant contradictions. So in one video, he's telling us a particular brand of coconut water is bad and we shouldn't buy it because it has 1 gram of added sugar. 1 gram. And then in the next video, he's promoting a particular brand of nut milk that has 4 or 5 grams of sugar. Not to mention, if you look further, it turns out he is an investor in that company. So in one video, he's telling us to run as far away as we can from grapeseed oil. And then in another video, he's cooking and uses, well, you guessed it, grapeseed oil. It's almost like it's a game to him. Like, it feels like he's doing it just to mess with people sometimes and like see if anybody picks up on it. It's wild. Could there potentially be some worthwhile information coming out of Schmobby's videos? Maybe. But because of all of his shenanigans, I don't trust a word he says, and I just scroll right on by. Number 4, they use a lot of buzzwords that have absolutely no real meaning. And this one is really going to get some people. I know. Trust me, I know. But listen to your girl. I promise you I would not steer you wrong. Toxic, natural, clean, chemicals, processed. Again, I know this is going to ruffle some feathers, but my friends, just because it sounds fancy or smart doesn't mean anything. Nutrition word salads are so prevalent on the interwebs these days that even I have to stop and try to like break down whether or not that salad I just listened to actually made sense. First, I have to point out literally everything is a chemical or made up of chemicals. So we have to like detach from that, like demonic meaning behind the word chemical. Everything is a chemical. It sounds really scary when someone says, this food is loaded with chemicals, don't eat it. But all of everything is chemicals. Water is hydrogen and oxygen, H2O, which are chemicals. And if you pound 3 gallons of water in a very short period of time, you could actually die. So we have to get away from these fear-mongering buzzwords that just scare people for no reason. Drink water, please, for the love of God. Don't be scared by the fact that I just said that. Drink water. The point is that it's not bad. It is chemicals and it's not bad. Processed. Everything we eat is processed in some way. We talk a lot about quote, ultra processed foods now. And if you listen to episode 10, you know that, we don't even actually have a definition for what exactly makes a food processed, ultra processed, minimally processed. There aren't actual standards for that yet. Certainly, things that are ultra processed are things that we want to avoid as much as possible because those tend to be the more calorie dense, less nutrient dense types of foods. But, as far as like processing in general, I hear people say all the time, like, don't eat processed foods, or, I'm trying to lose weight, so I'm not eating anything processed. But literally everything is processed in some way. Okay. The definition of toxic is harmful or poisonous. But again, the poison is in the dose. People spend a lot of money on quote unquote detoxifying their bodies with special supplements, teas, and other products. But did you know that your body has its own built-in detoxification system? And unless you are in an end-stage liver or kidney disease, that system is really, really good at doing its job. You really don't need you don't have to spend your money on extra supplements to detoxify your body, especially if you're still eating improperly, I guess is the word I will use. If the majority of your calories are coming from those ultra processed, more calorie dense foods, and you're in a calorie surplus, and you're very sedentary, and you don't get great sleep, like, you can drink that detox tea all you want, but that's really not helping your body in any way. Okay? There's no actual definitions for the words natural or clean. So when you hear influencers telling you to eat clean without defining what that even means to them or how it can translate to you and your life, it's pretty pointless guidance. You have nowhere to go from that. It doesn't actually mean anything. And then number 5, red flag, is their answer for everything is magic supplements. Now, do not get me wrong. I absolutely use supplements in my daily life, and I have no problem recommending ones that I think are going to benefit my clients when appropriate. However, the problem is the countless influencers who are providing content just to sell you a product. You can't lose weight? Oh, it's because you need these supplements. And wouldn't you know it, I happen to sell them. There are no magic supplements. They are meant to do exactly what their name suggests, to supplement a balanced diet and overall healthy lifestyle. I was listening actually to the Lane Norton podcast the other day, and he said something that I'm totally going to steal and use forever. He said, the magic that you're seeking is in the work that you're trying to avoid. Something along those lines. I'm probably getting it wrong. But the point is, there's no magic supplement. The magic is in the consistent effort that you're putting in, the consistent work that you're putting in with your exercise and diet and sleep and hydration, all of those things that are so necessary. That's what creates the magic, not that one random supplement. Okay. And so I could do an entire episode on supplements alone, and I probably will at some point. But for this specific area of concern, influencer red flags, I would say for sure, if they are trying to sell you their supplements as an answer to all of your health and weight problems, that is a big, big red flag. Unfortunately, there are way too many examples of this, but my favorite as of late is one influencer who totally got outed and canceled because of it. Again, I'm not one to name names, but his rhymes with Schmiverking. All of his content was a lie to push the supplements that he was selling, and people totally bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. They made him a millionaire. I digress. So number 6, red flag. They reference a lot of studies, but the studies either don't exist, they're outdated, or they cherry pick pieces of it without disclosing the actual findings, which is tough to prove if you're not versed in scientific studies, how to read them and or don't care to really go back and check them. So this is a tough one because when someone is using their buzzword salad and they sound super smart and reference certain studies, it's easy to not question it because, one, who the heck has time or cares to take note of the study that they're talking about and then go back to find if it exists? But also, two, have there been more updated studies that have come out since then, like contradicting the findings? And 3, did the study they're referencing actually conclude what they're saying? Or are they just cherry picking little parts of it to kind of, fit their narrative? I will totally admit to you, I hate reading studies. They put me to sleep. I'm not great at it. I'm not great at evaluating how they were conducted, who paid for it, whether or not the hypothesis was strong, et cetera, et cetera. Some dietitians are more clinical and just love breaking all of that down. I am not one of them, but I am super grateful to them because they then share their thoughts. But I do trust a handful of scientists in the nutrition space to analyze studies and then interpret them in such a way that I can understand all factors involved and what the conclusion was, and then kind of come to my own opinion on it. So a few of my favorite go-tos for interpreting nutrition studies are Dr. Lane Norton that I mentioned a little bit ago. Love him. Dr. Idz, I-D-Z, he's huge on social media. And Alan Aragon, Peter Attia, Dr. Peter Attia, also great, also has a podcast. They are excellent at calling out the different pieces of what studies are made up of and saying, well, this is a great part of this study, but then this part of it is not so strong. So, you got to look at it in this way and kind of come to your own opinion about what you think. And, they're just really good about they love that stuff. And I don't. So it's great to get that. Lane Norton also has his own app that you can get, and it's called Reps, and REPS. And of course, now I can't remember what each of those letters stands for, but he basically breaks down all of the latest and greatest in the world of nutrition and exercise. Anyway, number 7 red flag to look for in your influencers. And last but not least, also, it would be no credentials. So I'm not going to touch on this too much here because I am diving very, very deep into this on the next episode. However, I want to make it clear, I am not saying that they have zero legitimacy unless they're a dietitian. But it is vitally important that you know what exactly makes them a quote-unquote expert at this, and take that with a grain of salt. For example, a person lost 50 pounds and they've decided to vlog their health journey on the internet. So all of their content is telling people how they too can lose 50 pounds if they just do X, Y, and Z. They consider themselves an expert simply because they lost 50 pounds, not because they have any credentials that would substantiate their knowledge of how to lose 50 pounds. They could be incredibly unhealthy and not even realize it, and then they're encouraging other people to do the same things. That's dangerous. Or they could very well have some great helpful tips that other people could benefit from, but They just don't have the knowledge base to know all of those different nuances involved, and when what they're saying could be harmful to certain people. Case in point, the example I gave of the influencer claiming that her credentials were from reading the internet, and unfortunately a woman landed in the ER because, she followed her recommendations. So to summarize, just because someone is tech savvy and puts together cute, funny videos that sound impressive does not mean that they have the full breadth of knowledge to be guiding others on a health journey. Look out for the red flags. Fear-mongering around entire food groups or ingredients, no consideration or recognition of populations, constant contradictions, buzzwords that have no real meaning, selling a bunch of supplements, usage of studies show, but don't provide the actual studies. Most likely they don't exist, or they've just cherry-picked a piece of it to fit their narrative. And finally, no legitimate credentials of any kind other than the University of Google, or most recently, ChatGPT-U. This isn't even a matter of BS information that won't help you lose weight. It's flat out dangerous in so many ways. Please, please, please be careful when you're scrolling socials, and make sure you remember it's always best to get individualized recommendations from a qualified professional. In the next episode, like I said, I'm going to dive real deep into the differences between a registered dietitian versus nutritionist versus health coach. I hope you found this helpful, and if so, hit the follow button and leave me a review so other people who need us can find us. Thank you so much. I love you. God loves you. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Hey friend, I really hope you feel empowered by this episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and share it with another friend who needs it? Also, please leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. It brings me so much joy to know this podcast is helping you. Okay, time to go nourish well, aka eat some good food. I'll meet you back here next time for another episode. I love you and God loves you. Have a beautiful day.